Let's dive right into this explainer. The reality is, the traditional doctrine of abrogation, the idea that God somehow cancels, deletes, or overrides his own verses, is a massive historical fabrication. It's a concept that directly insults the divine perfection of God's unchangeable laws. I mean, think about it. Human governments constantly have to pass laws and then, abrogate them a year later because we're totally ignorant to the future. But applying that flawed human logic to the Creator, that is a theological impossibility. The Quran proves in verse 11:1 that the Creator's verses are perfected from the very beginning. There are no rough drafts. There are no mistakes. As seen on screen, here is the exact syllabus of truth we'll use today to systematically dismantle this lie step by step. We're going to cover the myth of abrogation, the political fabrication behind it, how to harmonize false contradictions, the ultimate danger of human texts, 3 absolute proofs, and finally, the reality of the fully detailed book. Section 1. The myth of abrogation and the theological and linguistic truth. We begin with an absolute, undeniable fact. God does not delete his own verses. Look at this visual proof right here. On one side, you have ignorant human governments forced to edit their flawed laws with red ink. On the other, verse 1 proves the Creator's laws are flawless from day one. God is completely wise and fully acquainted with all times and conditions. The reality is, he doesn't just issue a divine law, suddenly realize it's too difficult for us, and then hit the cancel button. The entire doctrine of abrogation relies on a massive linguistic manipulation. Traditionalists will constantly tell you the Arabic root word naskh means to delete or cancel, but the Quran proves otherwise. Look at verse 45:29. Here, the exact same root word describes how recording angels document human deeds. Do recording angels delete your deeds? Absolutely not. They transcribe them. They faithfully record them. This completely destroys the false claim that naskh means erasure. Notice the dictionary matrix on screen. This breaks down exactly how this lie was constructed. People lean heavily on verse 2106, claiming God says he abrogates an ayah, which they wrongly translate as a Quranic verse. But the truth is, the Quran proves the word ayah in this context refers to replacing previous scriptures, like the Torah or the Gospel, or it refers to physical miracles. It never, ever refers to deleting Quranic verses. God abrogates previous corrupted books, yes, but he absolutely does not abrogate himself. Section 2. The political fabrication and why this lie was invented. Every crime requires a motive, and the motive here was incredibly dark, driven by worldly conquest. Look at verse 22:52. This is a devastating counter to the traditional narrative because it dictates a divine formula. God only abrogates the whispers of Satan. Then, God secures his own verses. This means that to call a Quranic verse abrogated is to literally equate it with a satanic falsehood. And history shows, as confirmed in verse 10:15, that it was the disbelievers who demanded the text be changed and substituted, never God. So why invent this? History shows that corrupt, tyrannical empires, specifically the Umayyad and Abbasid dynasties, fabricated this doctrine to bypass the Quran's strict laws. Those empires wanted massive, brutal imperial expansion, but the Quran's laws strictly dictate defensive warfare, absolute religious freedom, and an uncompromising mandate for peace. By inventing abrogation, state-sponsored scholars essentially weaponized a single verse to falsely delete hundreds of verses of peace, giving their emperors a blank check for brutal territorial conquest. Section 3. Harmonizing false contradictions and the perfect design of the text. The truth is, there are 0 contradictions in the Quran. When you remove human interference, the laws harmonize flawlessly. Take a look at these texts on screen regarding warfare. On the left is the myth, the so-called sword verse, 9:5, which supposedly mandates killing all polytheists and erasing all peace laws. But on the right is the timeless law. Verses 9:4 and 9:6 explicitly demand honoring treaties and granting absolute asylum to any polytheist who asks for it. If 9:5 was a universal kill order, verses 4 and 6 would be physically impossible. The reality is, 9:5 is a highly specific defensive law against an enemy who actively broke treaties and attacked first. It works in perfect harmony with the mandate of peace. Here's another one, the supposed contradiction regarding intoxicants. Traditionalists claim God issued evolving, conflicting drafts. Nonsense. The Arabic word Sukara means a state of being mentally clouded or dazed, regardless of the cause. We're talking severe panic, sleep deprivation, or even medical anesthesia. Verse 443 is a permanent, timeless prayer law against entering prayer with a clouded mind. This perfectly coexists with the total ban on recreational intoxicants found in verse 590. There are no drafts here, just a perfect ecosystem of laws protecting both your spiritual presence and societal safety.
Now, notice the structural absurdity of abrogation when it comes to widows. The myth claims the 4-month, 10-day waiting period completely canceled out the 1-year housing provision. Yet, the allegedly canceled verse is placed chronologically after the active one. Divine math dictates these are two distinct, simultaneous laws protecting widows. The 4 months is the biological waiting period to remarry, while the 1-year provision in verse 2-40 is a vital financial safety net to protect widows from being left homeless by an estate.
Let's look at another undeniable proof regarding the Qibla, or direction of prayer. Traditionalists claim verse 2:11 says, "Wherever you turn is the face of God," was just a temporary compass rule that got canceled. But when you read the immediate context in verse 2:11, it's explicitly talking about tyrants who destroy or ban you from mosques. Verse 2:11 isn't some abrogated compass rule. It is a timeless guarantee of spiritual resilience. If oppressors ever lock you out of a physical mosque, the entire earth is his mosque. You are never ever cut off from the Creator.
Section 4, the ultimate danger and elevating human texts. This brings us to the ultimate theological crime, utilizing outside, humanly transmitted traditions to delete the explicit commands of the Creator. As seen on screen, we have to draw an absolute boundary here. Verse 24:54 definitively establishes that the messenger's sole duty was delivering the finalized text of the Quran. Furthermore, verse 18:26 dictates that God shares his legislation with absolutely no one. To claim that a human tradition can override the Quran is to elevate flawed human text to the level of divine law. It is literally trying to partner with God's perfect legislation. Look at this terrifying warning from the Creator in verses 69:44-46. It serves as absolute proof that the prophet never uttered a single extra-Quranic word intended to alter or override the divine text. God says if the messenger had fabricated any false sayings, he would have seized him by the right hand and severed his aorta. Because the prophet was not struck down, it is a factual, undeniable certainty that he never invented parallel legislation to rival the Quran. Section 5. 3 absolute proofs and flawless mathematical logic. We are now going to execute 3 airtight proofs, showing exactly how human tradition attempted to sabotage perfect divine law. These rapid-fire facts expose 3 clear instances of this assault on the book. First, leaving a will is commanded by God, yet it was falsely banned by human text. Second, the Quran explicitly mandates lashes for adultery, but human tradition invented lethal stoning. And third, the Quran guarantees absolute freedom of belief in verse 2256, yet outside text invented execution for apostasy. Let's break down the math and structure proving this right now. Focus on the divine math on this slide regarding the punishment for adultery. The Quran mathematically mandates exactly 100 lashes. Human tradition invented a law of death by stoning. But notice verse 425, which mandates that a married slave woman receives exactly half the punishment of a free woman. You can easily divide 100 lashes by 2 to get 50 lashes. That is flawless logic, but you cannot have a death penalty. The math completely destroys the fabricated tradition of stoning. Notice this structural proof right here. It shows exactly what happens when human texts try to erase foundational frameworks. The Quran, in verse 4137, explicitly describes a scenario where someone believes, then disbelieves, then believes again, and disbelieves again. If you follow the fabricated human law that executes a person the very first time they leave the faith, that entire Quranic sequence becomes physically impossible. The lethal penalty for apostasy literally breaks the structural reality of the Quran. Finally, Section 6, the fully detailed book and the prayer excuse. The ultimate excuse people use to justify cramming outside text into the religion is claiming the Quran is incomplete, always asking, well, how do we pray without external instructions? This timeline visually proves that the physical ritual of prayer was never missing. It was established by Abraham thousands of years prior at the sacred mosque. Verses 21:71-73 prove the establishment of prayer was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. During the Quranic era, verse 16:123 commanded Muhammad to simply follow the religion of Abraham. He was following an already universally known inherited practice. The reality is, God did not forget to detail the prayer. As seen on screen, the book is fully detailed. The Quran is perfectly woven. When you let it act as its own dictionary, it harmonizes flawlessly. There is zero dead text, there is zero human error, and there is absolutely zero abrogation. From the very first revelation to the last, every single word remains active, purposeful, and unchangeably true. We leave you with this final, provocative thought. If God Almighty declares His book complete, perfect, and fully detailed, why would you ever trust human tradition over the unchangeable word of the Creator? The truth is absolute. It leaves you to ask yourself why anyone would dare trade the perfected word of God for the flawed, manipulated traditions of men. Think about that.